So now what we're going to do is we are going to actually determine the pH of plasma, and we need to actually separate the plasma. So this is once again horse blood. So what we need to do is we need to centrifuge this entire tube. Once we centrifuge it, that centrifuge is going to separate by weight. So our red blood cells will be at the bottom, our buff color coat will be in the center, and then the top will be the plasma. So it's going to separate it by weight. So I'm going to go centrifuge this, and as soon as I am done, we will take a look at the results. So this is our centrifuge. Once again, we're going to stick this in here. You'll notice that I already have a test tube in here, and that's because we have to balance the centrifuge every time that we use it. So I'm going to put the sample in there, and we're going to go ahead, lock this, and we're going to run it for 5 minutes in order to spin that sample. So now that we're done with the centrifuge, you can actually see the different layers here. You have the red blood cells, then you kind of have this layer in between that's called the buff colored coat. It's the buffy coat. The buffy coat is going to be your white blood cells and your platelets. So once again, erythrocytes on the bottom, white blood cells and platelets, and then you have all of the plasma here. So in order to see the plasma color a little bit better, I'm going to take the plasma off the top of the sample and place it into its own little test tube. So now we've got the plasma by itself, and if you look at the plasma, you can actually see my finger on the other side of it. That's going to indicate that it's actually very see-through. So we have two terms that we use. We can use either translucent or opaque. Translucent means that it is see-through, and opaque means that you can't see through it. So if I put text or something underneath, I could pretty much read right through it, and the reason being is because it's translucent. It's got that clear, you can see right through it. And so the color itself is kind of a yellowish color. It's like a straw color, and that's a normal color for plasma. Plasma is not clear. Yes, it's made up of a lot of water. That's what the majority of plasma is made out of, but it's got proteins in it. It's got antibodies in it, got all kinds of things in it, and so that's going to cause it to be a slightly different color. So the next thing we need to do is we need to actually test the pH of the plasma, and I want you to remind you that our normal pH of plasma is between 7.35 and 7.45. So I have a little strip of pH paper here, and I'm going to place a drop of this plasma on that strip, and then you'll see that I have this key here that indicates that the color is going to indicate what pH it is. So really we should see a pH between 7 and 8 realistically, because that's going to be kind of within that normal range, and it's probably going to be closer to 7. So what we need to do is just take a drop of plasma, we're going to put it on the pH strip here, and then from there we'll actually do the measurement. Let that sit for a minute. I can already see that it's already a slightly kind of yellow color there. And so if I compare it to 8, it's not quite 8 and it's not quite 7, so it's somewhere in between. It's a little closer to 7 than it is to 8, which indicates that we're about right. That pH is about 7. Between 7 and 8 on this sample. Like I said, this is 8 down here, somewhat close to that color, also close to 7, so it's really going to be in between 7 and 8. And remember, our normal pH is 7.35 to 7.45, so that's exactly what we would expect to see.